Hi, welcome into the channel. My name is Sarah. I'm a mindset mastery coach, transformational hypnotherapist, and attachment style specialist. Today's video, I'm coming to you from the perspective of the fearful avoidant. If the fearful avoidant were honest, this is what they would say. Yesterday, I did a video, the sister video for the dismissive avoidant, and you all asked me, so with popular demand, here is the fearful avoidant perspective. If you'd like a personal session with me, you can reach out to me. There's a link in the description box below for a 20-minute discovery call. But let's hop right into this content today. So I'm going to talk to you like I'm the fearful avoidant. I'm going to talk a lot about the beginning of the relationship, but then we're also going to progress into a couple months in when things really start to fall apart. Okay. Hi, I'm a fearful avoidant. And if I were honest with you, well, gosh, I'm not even honest with myself. But if I could be honest with you, this is what I would say is I'm going to come on strong, pretty hot and heavy, a lot like the dismissive avoidant in the beginning. And it might even feel like love bombing, but it's probably going to feel really good to you because, see, I'm the deepest feeler out of all the insecure attachment styles. I really do genuinely feel things really deeply. I really do authentically care. I really do authentically form bonds and connections. I'm somewhat self-aware. I'm definitely more self-aware than the dismissive avoidant, but I'm definitely not even as close to being self-aware as a secure person. And so that gets me into trouble, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's stay in the good stuff, right? Because this is the stuff I like in the good stuff. In the beginning, things are good. We're in the honeymoon period. Dopamine is flowing for both of us. And when we become intimate, there's going to be some oxytocin, at least if both of us have that capability. Now, if you're a dismissive avoidant, you don't really have that capability. You don't really know how to bond in that way. Your body doesn't know what to do with that, but mine does. So I will bond. So especially if intimacy happens really fast in the beginning, which it probably will because I'm a pretty passionate person, then I'm going to feel really bonded to you right away. And that might make me lean into my anxious attachment style. And that might make me go a little crazy because when I lean anxious, I feel really insecure and I'm really scared of abandonment when I'm in that place. But then because I'm a disorganized attachment style, aka fearful avoidant, I might lean to the other end of the spectrum and I might start to go avoidant on you because, oh, it's really scary to be so vulnerable. So you might start to see me very quickly here in the beginning oscillating from anxious to avoidant, anxious to avoidant, anxious to avoidant. But in the beginning, it's probably going to happen in longer spurts, right? So I may stay in that anxious mode for a while and then eventually transfer to avoidant mode. And it's not going to be very transparent in the beginning. I'm going to be able to keep it under wraps because honestly, I don't even know I'm doing it. I just know that when things start to get vulnerable, probably after we've been intimate, then I start to feel like, ooh, I'm being seen. And that's really scary because one of my greatest fears, but also one of the things I need the most is to feel seen and heard and understood. But I feel really exposed and vulnerable when somebody really gets to know me. I can be kind of the life of the party when I'm around people and in a group of people, but when it's one-on-one and it's a romantic relationship and things start to get serious, especially if you're a securely attached person and maybe you start talking about the future, you start talking about making things serious, as much as I desire that and as much as I crave that and want that on such a deep level, it scares me because, see, in my childhood, the way that this worked and the way that this happened is I had parents or caretakers who were sometimes there and sometimes weren't. So I got intermittent reinforcement. And that created this disorganized attachment style within me that I didn't even know I have. In fact, I probably know I have it to some degree. I don't maybe know what the name is or what it's called, but I know that there's something going on because all of my relationships sort of end prematurely. I can't really hold on to a relationship longer than maybe like 2 years or maybe, like 6, 7 months. And I don't know why. I just keep unpicking emotionally unavailable people. And I think maybe I might be emotionally unavailable, but then I think, no, I feel things so deeply. There's no way that I'm emotionally unavailable, right? Right. Yeah. We won't even talk about that. So when things start to get really hot and heavy and I start to pull away, I can do a couple of things. See, I'm a spectrum. With a dismissive avoidant, you get it kind of, here's the way it is. But with a fearful avoidant like me, you get this and that and something in the middle, and we're kind of all over the place. It's a spectrum. So I could lean heavily anxious or I could lean heavily avoidant. And if I lean heavily avoidant, I'm going to appear like an avoidant. If I'm leaning heavily anxious, I'm going to appear like I'm an anxiously attached person. And then sometimes I might be somewhere in the middle. But the biggest wound that I have really is betrayal. So if I feel like you've betrayed me, I'm probably going to go off. And that's when things get really nasty. I can be verbally abusive and really nasty and emotionally abusive, even. But let's go back to my childhood for a second. So, in my childhood, with that intermittent reinforcement, my parents might have been active addicts. They might have been like functional alcoholics or something like that. They might have smoked a lot of pot, right? They might have done something that didn't seem that bad on the surface. In fact, I might have thought I had the perfect childhood until I actually dug a little bit deeper and realized, whoa, there was some emotional abandonment. There was some emotional neglect here. And the reason that I fear intimacy, but also crave it so deeply, is because sometimes I got it and sometimes I didn't. My physical needs were mostly met. My emotional needs were sometimes met. Sometimes they weren't. My spiritual needs, sometimes met, sometimes weren't. I wasn't always allowed to express my emotions. In fact, I was often just told to go into my room and work it out. What I really needed was a sounding board. What I really needed was to be able to express my emotions. I have a lot of anger bottled up as a fearful avoidant. I have so much anger bottled up that it's going to come out and it's going to be aimed at you because you're the closest person to me now. So, congratulations on that, because guess what? That's ammunition for when we get into disagreements. Also, I'm going to blame you for pretty much everything. See, I don't think that anything is really my fault. So when we get into arguments, I have a real hard time taking accountability. And what I'm probably going to do is put it on you. Nope, you're the problem. You're the problem. You did this, you did that. And I am so convincing that it's almost manipulative. But again, I really believe this. I'm not doing this to deceive you. You probably at this point think you've been deceived because that sweetheart in the beginning is suddenly gone and it's been replaced by this kind of monster. It's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And the difference with me and the dismissive avoidant, see, is that the dismissive avoidant tends to just stonewall and kind of just go cold and walk away and disappear. I can do all that too, right? Especially if I'm leaning avoidant. Remember, I'm disorganized. But I can also get really nasty and really anxious. And when I'm in anxious mode and I'm in that codependent mode, it's almost worse than me being avoidant because that's when the emotional or verbal attacks and assaults start to come out. You're probably going to feel attacked. And in fact, I probably am attacking you, but I don't see it that way. I just think that I'm standing up for myself. I just think that you're the problem and you need to fix things. And if you fix things, then everything will be okay in this relationship. You're going to start to expect the unexpected from me. And that's going to create volatility, emotional volatility inside of this relationship where you're not going to be able to really determine how I'm going to react. And without understanding me and without me really understanding myself or the way that I react or why I react the way I do, in fact, sometimes I can react just like that, just like on the flip of a switch, right? The flip of a dime. And suddenly I can go from being really sweet, really communicative, and I will just shut down in that moment. My defense mechanisms come online. This isn't my fault, but it is my responsibility. But I don't really know that yet, remember, because I'm kind of aware, kind of not. Maybe nobody's even called me on this or even told me that this is what I'm doing, but I'm the great saboteur out of all the attachment styles. I will sabotage like the best of them. I sabotage things when they're good. I will nitpick and find things that are wrong with you, and I will point them out. Unlike the dismissive avoidant, who's probably going to keep them to themselves and then suddenly blindside you at the end, I'm going to let you know the entire way what you're doing wrong. And part of me kind of enjoys that because, again, I don't have to take culpability, responsibility, or accountability, and I can just blame everything on you. And if everything is your fault, then that makes my life a lot easier. And then I can walk away saying, see, they really weren't a great partner after all. Look at all the things that they did or that they needed to work on. And then I'm avoiding that self-reflection. Except ultimately, when things end, and they will, because I'm going to push you away, and eventually you're going to love yourself enough to walk away, or I'm going to walk away, or one of us is going to walk away. And that's when I'm going to get really hurt. That's when I'm going to allow myself to feel vulnerable again. It was too hard to allow myself to be vulnerable for a lengthy period of time inside of that relationship. I could do it in spurts and bits and pieces. But as soon as I feel vulnerable, I'm going to pull back, right? Because I have that solid need for independence, a lot like the dismissive avoidant. And you started to see me at the end of that relationship oscillate between avoidant, anxious, maybe even secure in there. And the one thing that you can say to me is, you are so confusing. Yeah, I'm a fearful avoidant. I'm very confused. I don't even know myself, and you probably feel very deceived by me, but I didn't mean to deceive you. I'm not doing this on purpose. But when my attachment wounds are activated, when I feel like you've betrayed me, and it can just be like a slight change in your voice. It could be that you were 5 minutes late. It could be that I suddenly just suspect that you're doing something wrong. Maybe it's because I'm really doing something wrong. See, I'm a fearful avoidant, and what I can do is sometimes I'm not really a cheater, but maybe there's an emotional connection with somebody else. And maybe I'm the one actually having that emotional connection with somebody else, but not crossing that barrier physically. And then I'm going to start to accuse you of cheating, right? Because that's just how I operate. Because again, I can't get too vulnerable. I can't put all my eggs in one basket, but also I'm not a cheater. So I'm not intentionally setting out to hurt you. I'm just trying to protect myself. And if I don't keep all my eggs in one basket, then I really can't get that hurt, right? Because then I always have other options. But again, I'm not a cheater, so I'm not going to cheat on you. But you're probably going to feel like something's off, or you're going to feel like I'm confiding in someone else, because I am confiding in somebody else. Because at this point, I've started to kind of get the ick, just like the DA, and I've started to go, you know what? Maybe this person isn't so great after all. Look at all these things that they have to work on, while avoiding working on myself. Now, once things end, I will feel pain. So, unlike the dismissive avoidant, I will actually feel a lot of emotional pain and turmoil and sadness and grief when that relationship ends. And I'm going to have the ability to look back and actually start to take accountability. But it's probably too late, because at this point, the damage is done. You've been hurt. I've been hurt. And we've repeated these cycles so many times. And you just say, you know what? I can't trust you. I can't trust to expect security or stability from you. And that would be fair and that would be honest, because I really can't give you that stability until I create stability within myself. I feel disorganized in my own brain, in my own heart, in my own mind. And I just know that things just don't work out for me romantically. And I guess I've got some work to do on myself, because I really thought I had my shit together. But I guess I really don't, because I just ruined another good thing. And the only one that I have to blame now, while I'm sitting here in this silence and this space that exists now between us, is myself. So I'm probably going to go to therapy at this point. Hopefully, I get a therapist that's skilled in attachment theory or attachment styles, or a coach. Or I'm going to start reading some books, or I'm going to hear some words and they're going to start to click, and I'm going to start to do my work. I can heal, and actually I want to heal. And that might be the difference between the dismissive avoidant is me, is I actually want to heal. I want to learn. I love learning. But I'm going to have to set my pride aside, because I am prideful. I'm going to have to set my pride aside and my ego and say, you know what? It's time to heal. Enough is enough. Because I've realized at this point, maybe you're the one that finally got me to realize that this cycle cannot be repeated any longer, because it's hurting me, it's hurting others, and I'm getting older, and I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. I want to be secure. I want to have healthy relationships. I don't want to repeat these cycles where I hurt myself and hurt other people. So it's time to dive in and do my work. It's time to really get self-aware and really reflect. And I'm going to reflect on this for a long time. In fact, you're probably going to hear from me during the breakup. You're going to hear from me. I'm going to reach out to you. I may even try to resurrect the relationship. But hopefully you don't allow that until I've actually done my work. That would be the healthiest thing for me, actually, and for you. So I can break free from that codependency and that anxious attachment that I can lean into sometimes. But then you're not allowing me to avoid, right? So if you really love me and if you really think it's salvageable, you might say something like, you know what? I do love you and I do care. I'm so happy you're doing your work. Let's connect again in a couple months. Let's see where things are at, right? Because really what I need is time and space by myself. I need to be okay with myself so I can resolve that anxious side that feels the need to just get into a relationship or feels the need to attach to somebody else. But I also need to resolve that avoidant side that just runs away from problems. It runs away when things get tough. I need to be able to sit in the hard stuff with you. That's how relationships work. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. And I'm sorry for the hurt and pain that I caused. It wasn't intentional. I wasn't trying to deceive you. I really am that person that you met at the beginning. It's just hidden underneath triggers and attachment wounding and all the things that happened in my childhood. I'm just protecting myself. And I think we're all doing that to a certain degree. So I hope that you can understand love the fearful avoidant.